Up next, while promoting his new film, We Live in Time, via an interview with Esquire, Andrew Garfield spoke on his willingness to reprise his role as the Amazing Spider-Man, saying, quote, "For sure, I would 100% come back if it was the right thing and it's additive to the culture. If there's a great concept or something that hasn't been done before that's unique and odd and exciting and that you can sink your teeth into. I love the character and it brings joy. If part of what I bring is joy, then I'm joyful in return." We all have an opinion on how Sony has handled its toy box of characters. Is the prospect of more Peter 3 something we'd thwip out our wallets for?
A lot of thoughts bounce around my head when I read this quote. You could argue that Andrew Garfield got a redemption in No Way Home. He was like a fan favorite when he was revealed on screen. You see those videos of people watching the movie and they just went crazy when he pulls his mask off. And then he gets his sweet moment of, I guess, forgiveness of himself when he saves Peter 1's MJ. And so you could say that that was kind of a French kiss, like farewell to that character. He was also a fun Spider-Man. Like, he didn't fit the mold of what Spider-Man is technically, but he's the best thing about those movies, in my opinion. It's not his fault they built kind of a not great universe around him. And so I would not dislike seeing Andrew Garfield back as Spider-Man. I think it could be a fun opportunity for Sony to try to create their own live-action Spider-Man universe without it being connected to the MCU, because they are just failing at that miserably right now, as we have discussed ad nauseum on the podcast, and I'm sure Jay will whip out his extreme voice for anytime soon. But I think it could be fun to see, like, an older Spider-Man, like an older Peter Parker. Maybe in this universe he gets with MJ and he has his family like he does in the comics. Like, there's a lot of really interesting ways you could take it with Andrew Garfield, who clearly has a lot of love still for the character. And I think Tobey's arc is good and done, but I think Andrew just has, I think there's something left there that he didn't really, there's no closure maybe for him as an actor on the role. I kind of got that from reading the article, and so I would be here for it, but can they do it well? Can they do it thoughtfully? That's where the questions really come into play.
I'm right there with you. The realist in me, I see this for what it is. This is Andrew Garfield playing the game, doing what he does, and he's a great actor. He doesn't need Spider-Man. Spider-Man could benefit from Andrew Garfield, but Andrew Garfield, he doesn't need Spider-Man. And, thinking about his Amazing Spider-Man duology there, trilogy, if we want to include No Way Home there, I think about the 2012 one. It was a great start. It was, we weren't getting Tobey back. Spider-Man 4 wasn't going to happen. So I was into it. The Lizard is he's actually, once upon a time, he was my favorite Spider-Man villain, like growing up on that animated series. So ecstatic to see that character, and I was excited for the future. But 2014's Amazing Spider-Man was not good. Very clunky, very messy, and brought everything to a screeching halt. So I agree with you there, Haley, that it does feel like out of all the people that have played Spider-Man, even Tom Holland included, he is the one that hasn't really got his due, even with that fantastic moment in No Way Home that could serve as that, kind of putting a nice little bow on it. So it's been interesting. The whole time we've been talking about Andrew Garfield making that return and the excellent campaign he did while he was denying the fact that he would appear in No Way Home. But I look at this and, like, I never really thought it was going to happen even after No Way Home. I was just like, I don't trust Sony, first and foremost. I do not trust them, even if it is Andrew Garfield. I just don't trust them if, unfortunately, Marvel Studios is not involved in some capacity. So I actually take him saying this as kind of like confirmation that it won't happen, because we just got the news about Dustin Daniel Cretton getting attached to another Tom Holland Spider-Man, and from what we heard, that is going to be a multiverse story. And while I think all of us here bristled a little bit against multiverse versus a street level Spider-Man story, but if we're going to get another multiverse story, let's just not do the same thing over again. Let's not have Tobey and Andrew come back. Let's see other Spider-Man potentially, or just other aspects of the multiverse. We don't really need to do Spider-Verse over again, especially when we've got so much that's going so well on the animated side of things. So yeah, that's kind of where I come from. come at it from. Sorry, I can't talk. Come at it from. I'd be open to his return, but I just really don't think it's going to happen. But love Andrew Garfield. Love the fact that he's willing to keep fans endeared to him, and just keep doing what you're doing. We love you.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that I mirror both your sentiments. Love Andrew Garfield. Would love to see more of this character. The thing that really stands out, though, is like, but I don't trust Sony. The thing that really stands out to me, though, is like when I watched No Way Home, we had 2 returning Spider-Men, and Tobey Maguire is beloved, and I love him, but like I didn't leave that theater thinking I want more Tobey Maguire. Even though I love him, there just seemed like there was a lot left on the table for Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. The like pain he'd gone through and the way that he had turned dark. Like I want to see that. Like I want to see him still wrestling with his demons of being a darker Spider-Man, and like that seemed really, really interesting and something we really haven't seen on screen. Last time we saw Spider-Man turn dark, he just danced around, which just wasn't the same thing. So I just think I didn't feel like Toby had a lot more story to tell, but I did feel that with Andrew Garfield. So I would love this, but I do think they'd have to somehow figure out the thing we were talking about earlier, the balance between creativity and like the singular vision versus studio involvement. I think Sony is off the charts out of whack when it comes to that. They're just not doing a good job with that. It's just not working. They keep building these things that are built to create a universe, but no one's making good movies. And it just feels like it's putting the cart before the horse and not putting it in the hands of creatives that know what they're doing or have a good vision. So I think they're just not doing a good job over there. And so they would need change from the top or Marvel Studios involvement for me to really be on board. I mean, no, I would still go see it. I'd still be excited for Andrew Garfield. But like, yeah, I for it to be good, I feel like that's probably what they're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, I just hope that if Andrew Garfield is ever approached about playing Spider-Man again by Sony, I hope that he has very good discernment, and I hope that he has a very good agent, and I hope that whatever idea that he's presented with, he is true to his words here, and he takes a role as this character in a way that tells a new story, a fresh story. He loves the character, and that's not the thing, but he also does not want to just play this character 5 more times, right? Like there's not, and his words sort of say that. It's like he doesn't want to just sign up for 4 more movies about being Spider-Man and fighting 4 more villains and kind of continue this whole thing. But I think what he's saying is, look at what No Way Home was. It was a unique opportunity with the character. It's kind of like what Hugh Jackman just did with Wolverine. They didn't come out and say, come be Wolverine for 5 more movies or whatever. They said, we have this unique opportunity. You get to come out, you get to do your thing for a movie, and then you can sort of step away if you want to step away. You leave the door open, but you don't have to. It's like, I can see that sort of vision here for Andrew Garfield if he wants to come back and be Spider-Man. I don't think the move here is to just be Spider-Man for the future indefinitely and just pop up in everything and be like, oh, it's you again from the multiverse. And I don't think he wants that either. But I think if he's presented with some kind of a window where he can do something that's new and fresh with the character, like what No Way Home was, I think he probably would be open to that. But again, like I said, with discernment, what I don't want to see and what I think would be the danger zone here is if Sony has intent of getting all of these Spider-Men together plus others to fight their Venom multiverse villain or whatever. Like, to me, that feels like a miss in terms of what you could really do. And I don't know if people are going to be too excited about that. I mean, we've kind of seen a very lackluster return on the Sonyverse, not just financially, but critically as well. And I don't know if people are necessarily, and if I'm Andrew Garfield's agent, I'm saying, like, stay away from that. Like, I don't want you popping up and fighting Kraven or Morbius or whatever. Like, that would be bad for your career. So I think it's there's a sweet spot there, like there's a spot where he wants to play him, but it's only under a specific set of circumstances. And if he can stick to that, I'm in. But again, he's Andrew Garfield. He does not need the money. He does not need to just keep playing Spider-Man forever. So there's a line here to walk. But I am glad. I'm always glad to hear from him. I think he's just like a very, just like charismatic, smart, just like down to earth personable person. And so when he talks about Spider-Man, it is refreshing to hear somebody just be like, I loved playing Spider-Man. I know he's a comic book character. I get it, but I loved playing that character. That's refreshing to hear in a world where sometimes people are trying to distance themselves from those characters as much as they can as they get more sort of a profile in Hollywood. And we love Andrew Garfield. He's a great actor, but he's a great person, a great person, especially in these interviews that we see him in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think some of our MCU players could take notes from him about how he handles himself in interviews. Because,
Totally.
I mean, look, his duology fell on its face, and he still conducts himself with that level of grace that you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Could think of a couple of our favorites that didn't do that.
Yeah, of any of the Spider-Mans, he could be the one to be like really wanting to distance himself, and he hasn't.
Yeah,
and
for
that's
sure.
really rad.